The fluorescent lights of the office had been buzzing in my ears for 12 hours. My boss had been clear. The deadline was tomorrow, and being the new guy at 22, I wasn't about to be the one who failed. By the time I sprinted for the last bus, my off-green button-down was damp with sweat, and my tie was hanging loosely around my neck. I managed to collapse into a seat just as the doors hissed shut. The ride was a 75-minute blur of city lights and exhaustion. When the bus finally spat me out at my stop, I still had a 10-minute walk ahead of me. It was 9:20 p.m. In this neighborhood that wasn't late, but the streets were unnervingly empty. The silence felt heavy. The streetlights here are a joke. They're spaced so far apart that the sidewalk is a sequence of bright circles followed by long stretches of ink-black shadows. I hiked my laptop bag higher on my shoulder and quickened my pace. I was approaching the old abandoned hospital. I usually didn't mind it. I'd started hitting the gym recently and felt capable, even confident. Then I heard it. A sharp metallic strike against stone. I slowed down. Sitting on a large rock near the hospital's perimeter was a man. He looked like a ghost skeletal, skin stretched so tight over his ribs you could count them through his tattered open shirt. He hit the stone again. This time I saw the glint. It was a 9-inch blade, shimmering under the distant yellow glow of a street lamp. He muttered something, a guttural, unintelligible scream. Then, he began to tap the flat of the blade against his palm. The sound was a wet thud that echoed off the hospital walls. I tried to stay calm, but his head tilted to the side as he watched me. He looked like he was hunting. I gripped my bag tighter, wondering if I could use it to protect myself. My heart was beating so fast I could feel it in my throat. I kept my eyes forward and kept walking. I tried to look strong, even though I was terrified. Every step felt heavy. I was almost past him and back into the dark part of the street when I heard his feet move on the gravel. He didn't move slowly. He jumped toward me. Suddenly, the distance between us evaporated. He was fast. Before I could breathe, he was standing right in front of me. He smelled like old sweat and copper. It was a thick, gross smell that made me want to gag. He stepped into my path, his eyes wide and glazed with a drug-induced film. His pupils were huge and gray. He reached out and grabbed my hand, holding me in place. His grip was very strong. His skin felt cold and dry, like old leather. But he didn't point the blade at me. Instead, he turned the knife toward his own chest. He leaned in until his face was only inches from mine. I could see the cracks on his lips and his yellow teeth. He didn't blink once. He looked very calm as he pushed the sharp edge of the knife into his own skin. He began to cut himself slowly. The blade went through his skin easily, like it was cutting through paper. I heard a quiet, wet sound as the skin opened up. I stood frozen and watched the blood start to cover his chest. The first few drops were dark, but then they turned bright red. He didn't seem to feel any pain. He didn't even make a sound. Actually, he looked more relaxed as he did it. He used the tip of the knife to draw a bloody line across his collarbone. The sight was traumatizing. I wanted to run or scream, but I couldn't move. A drop of his blood landed on my shirt sleeve. It felt warm on my arm. As the blood became more visible, his smile only grew wider, stretching across his face in a way that didn't feel human. His smile was so wide it looked like his skin might rip. He leaned his forehead against mine and forced me to look down at his bloody chest. He wasn't trying to rob me. He was showing me something horrific. "Do you see?" he whispered. His voice was rough and dry. "Do you see how easy it is?" He started to laugh. It was a low, bubbling sound. Blood was everywhere now. It soaked into his pants and dripped onto the ground between us. He started to sway back and forth, pulling me with him because he still had hold of my hand. He kept moving the knife, making small, quick cuts over his ribs. He finally released my hand, and the sheer shock of what I had just witnessed made my knees buckle. I fell onto the street in total terror. The ground was cold and dirty under my hands. He didn't move toward me. He simply started that same rhythmic tapping again, hitting the now blood-stained knife against his hand while staring into my soul. The sound of the metal hitting his bloody palm was the only thing I could hear. He looked happy, like he had just shown me something important. I looked at the knife, and then at his face. I realized the knife wasn't meant for me. It was for him. He just wanted me to watch his nightmare. He kept staring at me, and I saw spit dripping from the corner of his mouth. I didn't wait to see what he would do next. I threw my wallet toward him, though I don't think he even wanted it. It landed near his feet, but he didn't look at it. I scrambled to my feet, tripping over my feet once before I got steady. I ran. I didn't stop until I was through my front door, fumbling with the deadbolt. I leaned against the door and tried to breathe. My lungs felt like they were on fire. I looked down and saw the red blood stain on my sleeve. I took the shirt off immediately and threw it in the trash. I didn't want it near me. I never made a complaint to the police. I know who those people are, and they know me. Making a scene would only make it worse. In this part of town, the police can't really help with people like him. I'm already looking for a new place to rent. But for now, I make sure my work is done long before the deadline hits. I don't walk those streets in the dark anymore. Now, every time I hear metal hitting something like a spoon on a plate, I feel his cold hand on my wrist again. I can still see his dark eyes watching me from the shadows.
My name is Ayla. I am 33 years old now, but from the age of 19 until I turned 23, my life was defined by an addiction to heroin. The story of how I first started using is a long one, but there is a different story that carries more weight for me. It is the story of how I finally got clean. Calling it a better story is a stretch, because the reality of it is horrifying. However, it provided the brutal wake-up call I needed to save my own life. So I suppose there is a silver lining buried somewhere in the tragedy. About 18 months into my addiction, the thin stability I had left completely vanished. I was kicked out of my apartment, and my family, understandably exhausted by my choices, cut ties with me. I found myself living on the streets. At 21 years old, standing only 5 feet 2 inches tall and weighing barely over 100 pounds, I was incredibly vulnerable. Looking back, I realize I should have been terrified, but at the time, my mind was entirely consumed by the constant need to find my next fix. Even so, the reality of being a young woman without a home is a nightmare I wouldn't wish on anyone. The first lesson you learn in that environment is the necessity of protection. It is a hard truth to admit, but survival often depends on having someone by your side. I was more fortunate than most. While many women are forced into dangerous situations for safety, I connected with a man who was also an addict and had been using for about as long as I had. He was only a few years older than me, and our bond wasn't just about the logistics of scoring drugs. We truly liked one another. Over time, that connection grew into a deep, genuine love. We spent 2 years navigating the world together. We faced the constant cycle of trying to quit, failing, and enduring the daily hardships of the lifestyle. The most important part of that time was the word together. He was my entire world, and I was his. He would do anything to keep me safe, from stealing to protect our interests, to physically defending me when things turned ugly. When we were eventually arrested for shoplifting and sentenced to 3 months in county jail, the separation was agonizing. I missed him more than I had ever missed my own family. I struggled to get by while he was locked away, so when the day of his release finally arrived, I was overwhelmed with relief. I actually cried with joy when I saw him again. While he was in jail, the system had forced him to get clean, but the moment he hit the pavement, his first instinct was to get high. I had anticipated this and prepared a small homecoming gift, a $10 bag of heroin. We quickly scouted out a quiet, secluded spot where we wouldn't be disturbed, eager to finally relax and be in each other's company again. He took his hit first, and then I used the rest of the supply. Afterward, we settled into each other's arms to sleep. It was a moment of closeness I had craved for months, a feeling of safety that is hard to put into words. As I drifted off, I felt him start to pull away slightly. I assumed he just needed to get up for a moment to use the bathroom. In my drug-induced haze and my desperation to keep him close, I reached out and tugged on his sleeve. I didn't want him to leave the embrace. I felt like I had waited an eternity for that cuddle, and I told myself he could surely wait just one more minute. When I finally opened my eyes again, I could still feel his arm draped around me. Coming down from a high makes the world feel sluggish and confusing, like your brain is struggling to log back into reality. For a brief second, I felt a wave of warmth and comfort. I wiggled closer to him, pulling his arm tighter against my body. I reached down to find his hand, intending to lace my fingers through his the way he always liked. That was when the warmth vanished. His hand wasn't just cold from the autumn Chicago air. It was a deep, heavy, stone-cold chill that bypassed the skin and went straight to my bones. It was the kind of cold that immediately signals that something is fundamentally wrong. I scrambled out from under him and spun around, frantically trying to shake him awake. When he didn't move, I let out a scream so violent that I physically became ill. The noise drew someone nearby to check on us, and the rest of the afternoon became a blurred montage of sirens, EMTs, and police officers asking endless questions. It was an overdose. After being clean for months in jail, his tolerance had dropped significantly. His body simply couldn't handle the dose. The realization that haunted me most was the memory of him pulling away. He hadn't been trying to go to the bathroom. He had been struggling to get help as his body began to shut down. While he was slipping into unconsciousness and passing away, I had been holding him tight, forcing him to stay still so I could enjoy the moment. I had slept next to his body for 5 or 6 hours. That image is something I carry with me every single day. Now, whenever I think about my recovery and how grateful I am to be sober, that memory is the very first thing that comes to mind. It serves as a permanent anchor to my past. I still find it impossible to say or type his name. Doing so triggers a level of grief that feels like it might tear me apart. Even though we were living a life of addiction, my love for him was the most real thing I had. I am plagued by the feeling that I am responsible for his death. He was clean when he walked out of those jail doors, and I was the one who handed him the very thing that killed him. It is a weight I carry constantly, a guilt that I suspect I will never truly be able to leave behind.
In the summer of 2006, I was offered a place to study history at Bangor University in North Wales. It wasn't my first choice of uni, but I always wanted to move away for university. I mean, that's half the point of the whole thing, isn't it? See, new places, meet new people, expand and enrich your intellect and all that. Bangor wasn't exactly Manchester or Birmingham, but there was something very quaint about having such a relatively prestigious university built into such a small and storied town. In the end, I only lived in Bangor for the better part of a year, as I ended up dropping out due to family problems. But my brief time there yielded a variety of different experiences. Some I'll always remember, and some I wish I could forget. So much like most other students at that age, university bred a desire for, well, experimentation. And as I partook in a few puffs of the wise man's mint, as one of my mates called it, and decided that, yeah, it was something I was going to get into. I didn't take the drinking all that much, Too much puking, and the hangovers just weren't worth it. But smoking up in a circle packed with intelligent, thoughtful people, that was a different kettle of fish entirely. Alright, most of the stuff we talked about was just absolute nonsense, which prompted nothing but a descent into giggles. But it was fun. And on top of that, you weren't a soulless, dehydrated husk the next morning. So one morning, I get talking to this local lad called Ricky. Ricky had grown up in Bangor, but wasn't academic enough for university. However, that didn't stop him from walking up into the student areas to take advantage of the public price pubs, which is how I got to talking to him. Eventually, the conversation got on to smoke and where I could get my hands on some, but local dealers didn't always trust the students, and even when they did, the chances that they just rip you off. Assuming you were spending mommy and daddy's money was very high indeed, which is why Ricky's promise of "I'll get some for you" was like music to my ears. I took his number down, told him I'd give him the text sometime, then finished up my pint, lost my game of pool, then wandered back to Hall's. The next day, I gave Ricky a text, and we arranged to meet outside a block of flats on the other side of town. This seemed a bit risky, as it was in the lower portion of Bangor, where the locals lived, and not up on the hill where most of the lecture rooms and halls were. But Ricky seemed like a nice enough bloke. I considered myself fairly streetwise, and with me having no other connections, I figured, why not? So I went to meet him, gave him my last 20 quid, and stood outside the flats and we went out to ring one of the buzzers. Now, I'm not completely soft, so I actually ended up peering over my shoulder to get a peek of which one he's ringing, just in case anything goes awry. The door opens. He says, "Back in a minute," and walks inside. A minute goes by, no sign of Ricky. 2 minutes go by, still no sign of Ricky. After 15 minutes of standing outside those flats like an absolute plant pot, I tried calling him, but as you can probably guess, he didn't answer his phone. I dropped him a few texts like "WTF is going on in here?" And again, I get no replies. Obviously, I'm absolutely furious, thinking, I can't believe I'm actually getting mugged off here, and there's absolutely no effing chance that I'm about to just walk away without kicking off. So I marched up to the little keypad near the front door of the flats and started buzzing the same button Ricky pushed. "Hello?" Some voice buzzes over the intercom. "Yeah, I'm a mate of Ricky's. He's got something that's mine. He needs to get back." Oh, the fellow on the other end was obviously playing dumb. "Look, mate, I've just seen him go into your flat, so you can either let me in, or I'll come back later with my cousins and we can see what happens." It was a pure bluff. My cousins were like 60 miles away, but it worked. There was a brief silence, and then the door buzzed open. I walked right up the stairs to flat 3, knock on the door, and someone instantly answers it aloud, about my age, who's keeping the door closed over because Ricky is evidently hiding inside. "Mate, I know Ricky is here, and he's got something in mind." "So he was here, yeah," the lad cuts me off, "but he's just gone off the back. Said he'll be back in a few minutes." Then I hear a voice that obviously belongs to someone older, saying, "Let him wait inside if he wants." The lad looks off to the right, then opens up the door. I walk in to see about 3 or 4 guys, again about my age, and one older balding bloke are down to his shoulders with this big, thick stash. In front of him on this dirty wooden coffee table, almost every kind of illegal substance you can imagine. And after waiting there for about 15 minutes, tension rising the whole time, I decided to give them something of an ultimatum. Because there's absolutely no doubt that I am getting scammed, and they just so happened to be in on it. Now, I know, what I did next was just stupid. But please don't underestimate how angry I was, and how I just refused to swallow my pride and walk away. So we turned to the old bloke and say something like, "Look man, let's just work this out. Ricky got 20 quid of mine, and I'm not stupid. I know what the crack is. I'm also not walking away without it. So let's just say you give me 1/8 of that green there, and that way, I don't have to file a police report saying some lad robbed me and ran into this flat. You get me?" Big mistake. Massive mistake. Sometimes, it really is just better to swallow your pride and walk away, especially if the only other option is throwing around threats that you're unlikely to back up. But in the heat of the moment, that's kind of what I did. And by kind of, Mo, you'll see what I mean in a minute. Until hearing my police threat, the older bloke just sort of nods his up to say fair shout and gets up and walks over to the front door. I'm thinking, hang on, what's he doing? And when he locks the front door to the flat with a mortised lock and slides the key into his pocket, I just think, oh, you can imagine what came next. The 3 younger lads jumped me. I tried my best to fight back, but as you can probably guess, 3-on-1 didn't give me a chance to throw, so much as 2 or 3 solid punches. Before I was on the deck getting the absolute life kicked out of me, all to a soundtrack of you coming to my flat and threatening me. Not happening. But the worst part was when I just heard, grab his hand, kept them still. I'm still in the middle of struggling, but I managed to get just a glimpse of the old bloke with a dumbbell in his hand might know what's coming. This fellow is going to smash my hand to bits without weight, and I'm probably never going to be able to write or type properly again. Thankfully, he didn't go through a smash in my hand up. Instead, he does this faint thing right as I think he's going to do it, then laughs his head off when I let out this embarrassingly girly scream. After that, I'm quite literally thrown out of the flat, and as I manage to bring myself to my feet and look back to see that one of the lads has my bloody provisional driver's license in hand, the wallet must have fallen out of the swipe during the kicking. Ah well, now we know your name and where you live. Go the filth, and you're a dead man. Get lost. I wandered. But the story doesn't end there. It just gets much weirder and arguably more terrifying. If I'd have just walked away with a bit of a bruised ego, I'd have saved myself a good kicking. However, in actually laying hands on me, these lads had made a huge mistake. I wasn't some gangster bound to a code of silence and honesty. Neither were they. I was a big city, and I definitely wasn't scared of some small town dealers. And if they thought they could just intimidate some kid into silence, that were dead wrong. Because the first place I go, after I ended up getting kicked out of the Phyllis flat, is the Bangor police station. I was just dead honest with them. I told them I got scammed trying to buy smoke. Told the man being battered with me thinking the whole time, they're going to go round up this bloke's flat, and they're going to know he's got drugs in there. The place stunk of them, and that's how I'm going to get my own back. Solid plan, right? And quick side note, for anyone who says I'm a coward, a grass, or a snitch for going to the police, wind your neck in Tony, Montana. This isn't The Wire. This is real life, and you fight with anything you've got available to you. Only, it didn't quite turn out like that. I was hoping the police would knock round Nick the bloke and his underlings, and then I'd see massive drug busts in the papers for a week or something like that. But when the police got back in touch, they said they'd nick a lad for assaulting me, but he was going to plead guilty, so it didn't look like I'd have to go to court or anything. They gave me some leaflets on getting over trauma advised me to file victims of crime compensation claim. And then, that was that. Yeah, it was some small measure of revenge, but it wasn't quite the complete and utter takedown I'd been hoping for. That being said, it would turn out that I didn't have to lift a finger to get my own back on Ricky. His own people would do that for me. Not even 7 days later, I'm doing a bit of food shopping down at Morson's, when who should I see? The giant cast on his leg and bruises all over his face. But Ricky, of all people, almost everyone I spoke to about it was like, wow, that's some karma in action right there. And they might still be right. It might have been a complete coincidence that 1 week the lad robs me, and the next he's in a bloody thigh cast, which, how I know it, must have been a really bad break. Stranger things have happened, right? But there's a thing. I don't really believe in coincidences. I believe in cause and effect. I think the top dog down in the lower town flat was just that top dog in the area. And I think the trouble Ricky ended up causing him Monday was only a fanny hair away from being nicked for selling Class A's. I think he was so angry that he had his little minions break Ricky's leg. I mean, how else to explain his black eyes and all that? He slipped and fell on the path of an oncoming fun run, pulled the other one. But then, the thing that really tickled me, the thing that honestly made my blood run cold, was this. If they were willing to do that to one of their own, they wouldn't bat an eyelid at the idea of doing the same to some other idiot student, would they? And it's only then that I realized how bloody lucky I'd really been. A few months after I completely balls up my end-of-year exams, ended up dropping out. And that was the end of that chapter. Needless to say, despite the relatively short amount of time I'd spent there, Bangor really did teach me a thing or two. They just turned out not quite to be the kind of things I imagined when I arrived.
Illegal activities in the club. In a bustling American city, there was a lively place called 5 Nights at Freddy's Club. It seemed like a fun and harmless spot for young people. The club had vibrant lights and music that attracted crowds looking to have a good time, dance, and make lasting memories. The atmosphere was filled with excitement as people embraced the carefree spirit of the night. However, hidden beneath the lively exterior, there was a secret side to 5 Nights at Freddy's Club that the partygoers didn't know about. Behind the scenes, there were rumors of hidden activities that the revelers were unaware of. While the neon lights and energetic music created a lively atmosphere, there was a mysterious world behind it, keeping the patrons blissfully ignorant of the secrets hidden in the heart of 5 Nights at Freddy's Club. One day, a reporter named Alex Thompson heard rumors about something bad happening at the club. People were saying that illegal drugs were being given to the partygoers without them knowing. Interested in uncovering the truth, Alex decided to go undercover to expose what was going on. Alex brought a hidden camera and a strong belief in doing what's right. Acting like any other person there to have a good time, Alex joined the lively crowd at the club. The place was full of energy, with bright lights and loud music making the dance floor come alive. As Alex moved through the crowded dance floor, it became clear that there was a challenge ahead. The club had tight security, with alert bouncers strategically placed to discourage unwanted attention. Despite this, Alex stayed determined, carefully watching the subtle interactions and whispered conversations among the partygoers. Weeks went by as Alex kept diving into the club scene, trying to collect proof to reveal the illegal drug trade. The nights started to blend, and frustration grew as every attempt to capture the illegal activities on camera failed. The drug deals were done secretly, and those involved were skilled at avoiding detection. But Alex didn't give up. Every obstacle only made Alex more determined to uncover the truth and shield the unsuspecting youth from the dangers hidden in Freddy's Club's shadow. One late night, as the music thumped to its peak, Alex had a breakthrough. In that club, there was a special room that only allowed rich and VIP guests. Security guards stood outside the room, making it impossible for an ordinary person to enter. For some reason, Alex found this strange and thought about listening to the activities and communication inside the room. However, the security was so tight that entering was completely impossible. Because of this, Alex came up with a plan. He decided to work as a waiter in the club to try to enter the room. But this plan failed because only appointed waiters were allowed inside. So, with the help of the club's gossip queen manager, Elizabeth, Alex thought of a way to get inside. After spending some time impressing Elizabeth, Alex finally got permission to be an appointed waiter. This way, he got the opportunity to enter the special room. The scene inside the room was quite surprising. Everyone there was discussing drugs and collaborating with the drug dealer. Alex recorded the whole incident with his mobile camera. Not only that, there was another incident in a corner. A group of people appeared to be involved in a suspicious transaction. Alex quietly approached, recording the exchange with the hidden camera. Finally, there was evidence. The footage showed young faces swapping small packages, exposing the unsettling truth beneath the surface of the lively celebration. Now that Alex had the evidence, it was time to reveal the story. Working hard to safeguard the identities of the innocent young people involved, Alex put together a powerful report. The report would expose the drug trade while ensuring the anonymity of those unintentionally caught up in the deceit. But this journey was not so easy. Bringing the truth of the 5 Nights at Freddy's Club to light was no walk in the park. When Alex tried to leave the club with the evidence, he was caught by the manager, Elizabeth, who had overheard the hidden conversation of the drug dealer. As a result, security guards were called, and Alex was taken into a room and beaten. However, Alex didn't lose courage. Somehow struggling with a security guard, he managed to escape from the room and, overcoming great difficulties, exited the club safely, saving himself from potential harm. As soon as he got outside, he took a deep breath and wasted no time. Alex immediately went to the police station. Once there, he showed the police all the evidence of the illegal activities happening in the club that he had captured on his camera. He also informed them about the assault he faced. Listening to his story and seeing the evidence, the police were quite surprised. They registered a First Information Report, FIR, based on his account and the evidence provided. When the story came out, it had a significant impact on the community. The revelation of drug activities in the beloved club caused shock, worry, and demands for quick action. 5 Nights at Freddy's Club, once a symbol of youthful joy, was now tainted by the shadow of illegal activities. Because of public outrage and the growing evidence, the police acted quickly. They closed down the club and started legal proceedings against those involved in selling drugs. The shutdown of the club sent a strong message to other places that might be doing similar illegal activities. The city, now understanding the risks in seemingly harmless locations, started taking measures to keep its young people safe. The incident led to a wider discussion about the importance of having better security in clubs and being more careful to prevent illegal activities from getting into places meant for fun and friendship. Alex's courage in going undercover not only revealed the truth, but also brought about positive changes in the community. As the city recovered from the shock of Freddy's Club's hidden secret, its people promised to stay watchful, making sure that hidden dangers wouldn't endanger their youth again. After everything settled, Alex thought about how investigative journalism could reveal things that some wanted to keep in the dark. The story of Freddy's Club showed that, even amid celebration, there could be hidden problems, waiting to be uncovered by those willing to find the truth.
I have reactive attachment disorder, and as a result, I struggle with severe depression. However, I don't take any medication. I say that because I was going through one of the worst bouts of depression I had suffered in a year and a half. And I wasn't hallucinating because of the medication. It was Tuesday night or Wednesday morning, October 13th to 14th. I had cried myself to sleep like I had done for however many hours before. When I woke up, it was 3:34 a.m. My cat Betty was walking around on the bed, and for some reason, my alarm on my phone was going off. I used the sleep cycle app, and the alarm was going off even though I had set it for 5:30 to 6 a.m. So I am frustrated that it decided to stop working correctly. Then, I hear that my computer in the living room turns on. I thought that my other cat Vader must have knocked the mouse while wailing over the desk. Then I see the light turn on from the monitor. What? I thought. I was kind of pissed, so I started grumbling about the cats walking around, alarms going off unreasonably, and Vader knocking things about. Until I turned on the bedside lamp and saw both cats are lying at the end of my bed. Looking into my living room, I froze. I was so confused. I was trying to make sense of it when I heard my main door open. Like the screen door first, then the front doorknob. Then I heard someone move across the carpet. Unlike the movies, I jumped out of bed as quietly as possible, wondering how the hell was someone entering my apartment, as I sure as hell locked the front door to the apartment. I silently stepped into the hall and peeked around the corner. My cats nonchalantly decided to ignore the obvious home invader, thief, or murderer that had entered our home. I looked around the corner, and the door was closed. The lights were off, the monitor was off, but I could hear the computer running. I stood there frozen and listened for any noise for God knows how long, but I could not make sense of it at all and couldn't sleep the whole night. It wasn't a dream. Maybe I was sleepwalking. I don't know. But I have never been afraid of my apartment, and at that very moment, I felt very afraid. Very much alone. It hasn't happened again. Or maybe it has. I just don't know.